Welcome to AJD Consulting Podcast, where we focus on personal and professional development. This episode focuses on navigating higher education while promoting equity. Today, we have a special guest, Meiyah Hill. Meiyah Hill is a higher education leader, scholar practitioner, and advocate committed to advancing equity and opportunity in first generation and underrepresented students. As Program Director of Educational Talent Search at the University of Akron, she leads initiatives that empower students and strengthens college readiness. A three-time graduate with a master's in Education of Science in Higher Education and Student Affairs from the University of Dayton, Meiyah also serves as a research associate at the Rutgers Center for Minority Serving Institutions, deeply engaged in service and mentorship. She aspires to become a HBCU president, continuing her mission to expand access across higher education. I am fairly familiar with Meiyah. We both are affiliated with the Center for Minority Serving Institutions. So super excited to have her here today. Meiyah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm grateful to be here to talk about my research and my vision for higher education.
Yes, perfect. So, jumping in, people don't know, but I'm a genealogist. So, I am fascinated with origin stories. So, can you
Mhm.
share with us a little bit about your background, who you are, where you come from, and just what are some hobbies? We want to get to know you.
Mhm. So, absolutely. I'm Meiyah Hill and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I come from a really supportive family who instilled in me the value of education and hard work from a very young age. Interestingly, my love for college started even earlier than most people think. When I was in fourth grade, my teacher actually assigned me to do a report about college, and
Okay.
my assignment was to look up your alma mater, Spelman College. So I did a report on it, and from the time I was 9, I knew I wanted to go to college. So I feel that early exposure planted a seed for the path I've been on ever since. In high school, I participated in a dual enrollment program, taking college courses while still completing my high school diploma, which helped me stay curious and ambitious. So by the time I graduated, I had already earned college credits and had a sense of what higher education would be like. Attending my illustrious Central State University, my HBCU in Wilberforce, Ohio, was transformative. It gave me a sense of family, cultural pride, and opportunities to take on leadership roles at a very young age. I also made lifelong friends from across the country, learning from their diverse experiences and building a network that really continues to support me to this day. Even from a young age, I loved mentoring and helping others navigate opportunities. And today, that passion is central to my work as a higher ed leader and scholar practitioner. And outside of work, I enjoy reading, volunteering, and sharing my journey with others. And my life has really been about blending, I would say, growth, service, and community while always remembering the people and institutions that shaped me.
So, I heard growth, service, and community.
Hmm.
I love that. I'm always taking notes because I'm always learning from my guests. And so
Okay.
you said something that was very important about early exposure. That is something that I can also identify with. I was
Hmm.
exposed to college very early too, from around the same age. So
Hmm.
it's very rare that I meet other people who was exposed to college so young. Are you also a first generation college student?
I am, and I'm a third generation community college graduate.
Got you. So yeah, especially like when you are somewhat of the pioneer in your family, people don't realize that you can be exposed to college so early, even if people around you may have not gone on the same path as you. And
Hmm.
so, as we're talking about the path, you started to talk about a little bit of it, but can you walk us through your overall college journey? What moments really shaped you, and what did you discover about yourself during that time period?
Yeah, I would describe my college journey being fast-paced but full of growth. I started community college at the age of 15. I transferred to Central State at 17, and I earned my bachelor's at 19. I most recently I completed my master's in higher education student affairs at 22. So Being so young in college came with challenges. I had to learn independence, being away from home. I was 3 hours away from home. Time management, which I feel like started in high school, but really college is when you're really like having to be in full control of your life. I like to tell my students that you should be the sole designer of your college experience because it is your experience. And I also had to navigate social and academic spaces with older peers. I will say when I was at Central State, a lot of students that were considered juniors and seniors, they were very impressed by me. And I didn't even go onto campus yet. So I went during the pandemic and they were very impressed by me. They were just like, oh, you're a junior, you're a senior, you're this age. And, every organization on campus wanted to know who I was, whether that was student government, whether that was honor societies, whether that was fraternities and sororities wanted to collaborate with me. I would say a lot of people wanted to know who I was, and people followed me on social media and seeing all the work that I was doing. CSU, in a way, provided a supportive environment where I could thrive as an individual. The HBCU experience gave me a sense of family, pride, and belonging on campus. I also had the chance to take on leadership opportunities early on. So I joined student orgs. I was academic affairs senator for student government, and I mentored students, and I still mentor students at CSU to this day. Making friends across the country was a highlight. I learned from just their perspectives, and that helped me grow personally and professionally. Looking back, my time at CSU taught me the power of mentorship, representation, and community. And these are lessons that I carry into my current work every day.
No, I love that. I think that one of the amazing things about a HBCU is that community. And
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize that you sometimes meet people from all 50 states, international. Like it's not your
Mm-hmm.
local community college, it's not your state school. It is definitely, I can't even put it into words. I cannot. And I also briefly talked about it in one of my reports with the Center for Minority Serving Institutions, where I talked about like these spaces being intentional, being
Mm-hmm.
filled with community and the intersections of our identities. And so, with you having this dynamic experience, you're younger than most, but you still have a maturity and a thirst for knowledge. What
Mm-hmm.
sparked your interest in higher education research and especially your focus on HBCUs?
I would say the turning point for me was becoming a John Smart Summer Scholar for the Center of Minority Serving Institutions. I'm proud to say that I was the first John Smart Summer Scholar intern from Central State and the University of Dayton. That experience gave me the hands-on research exposure and helped me become what is known as a scholar practitioner. And that's someone who uses research to inform practice and create real-world impact. I would say working with Dr. Mary Beth Gassman was incredibly inspiring and still is. Her mentorship and example of combining research with advocacy showed me the kind of leader and researcher I wanted to become. That experience also solidified my focus on HBCUs as a key area for research and advocacy. Currently, I'm writing a research brief about HBCU female presidents, vice presidents, and deans, exploring their pathways, challenges, and impact on institutions. And I feel like I wanted to do that project because it's tied to my aspiration of becoming an HBCU president. And I also feel like yes, there are plenty of dissertations and a couple of journal articles that are prominent about that topic, but I feel like there could always be more, especially touching on vice presidents and deans, because there's plenty of research on HBCU female presidents, but it doesn't really focus on vice presidents and deans in a historical or contemporary context. So I wanted to contribute to that part of research. I've also been given the opportunity to co-author a book chapter on HBCU women in STEM in collaboration with Howard and UNCF, which I'll start writing next year. During my internship at Center for Minority Serving Institutions, I published a research brief, a podcast episode, and an infographic, all in my early 20s, still in my early 20s, but just just having that opportunity so early, like when I talk about it with other people, they tell me like, why is that important? I said, because a lot of times master's students don't get to be published in a common way. Like it's not common for master's students to be published like that. So getting that opportunity is very, very crucial to me. I feel like being published at such a young age has been incredibly humbling and motivating. I say humbling because when you walk into that space, you think that they chose you because you're already a great writer. And going through that experience, also publishing within 90 days too, finishing a master's program, working an assistantship, doing internships for your graduation requirements, having your own life and all of that. I also had to figure out that I can't finish my master's thesis and try to publish at the same time. I said I need to fast track this. So
Right.
I worked very hard on it and I focused a lot of my time on it. And I feel like that's how I got published within 90 days compared to a year like my other interns who are still working on their research briefs, which I do support. I support everything they're doing. Shout out to Jamarius and Genoveva. Hope they see this because they'll be happy. But yeah, just being published within 90 days was a lot, but I feel like it was worth it because I got to focus more on my thesis and really put love into that. But I will say with what I'm currently doing, I am definitely taking the time to not fast track it because I am working a full-time job now. And so I'm doing the best I can to do research, write, but also balance everything else I'm doing. And I don't regret that at all. Yeah, I feel like these experiences have shown me the power of research, mentorship, and advocacy to make a tangible difference for students and institutions alike.
I love that. So there are a few things that you said that I wanted to affirm and comment
Hmm.
on. When you
Hmm.
talked about your research focusing on Black women presidents, deans, and assistant, what am I missing? Vice
These vice
presidents, deans.
presidents and yeah. Hmm.
Okay. I love that you're talking about that because technically that may be your pathway, right? When we're
Hmm.
thinking about the hierarchy in higher education,
Hmm.
most people start at the dean, once they are out of the entry level, they
Hmm.
may become a dean and then a vice president, and then somewhere else on the cabinet, and then a college president. So it makes perfect sense on why you're doing that. And I also feel that your research is very important because we have seen so many Black women in leadership, especially in higher education, who are having some mental health issues and are
Hmm.
experiencing that on top of all the other things that they experience in that role. And so I
Yes.
know that your research is going to be very important for all future leaders to say, hey, this is still a viable job. You can still
Hmm.
aspire to be in these roles, but also take care of yourself. Also listen to the experiences of these women and make it
Hmm.
your own.
Hmm. And I will say that is a big part of the findings that I'm seeing so far when it comes to why there's such a high turnover rate for the HBCU presidency. And
Mhm.
that's either male or female. It's a lot that comes with it. If you're not in tune with your board of trustees, then you're not going to stay long. That is something I've seen in research, and I've seen it firsthand what it's like to not be in tune with your board and not being in tune with your faculty, not being in tune with your students, not being in tune with your alumni. And I know that's a big ask to be in tune with all of these different populations, but it's important because that's how you keep the institution open.
Correct.
So I'm thinking about not just the positive parts of research, because I know we tend to want to talk about all the positive stuff, but there is there is the other side of it that is just as viable stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing both sides of the research, and that's something that Dr. Gassman taught me because when I was doing my research brief, my first one with her, she was just saying like, I understand you want to show all of the good things about why Black led organizations are pivotal to academic achievement and professional success to their members, but there are also the other parts of it that may not be so positive
Right.
that create that create the problems that you're researching. So it's okay to do that. So I had to open up my mind to that. And now it's something that I keep in my tool belt when I'm doing any type of research on anything.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson too, because she's teaching you how to be an objective researcher. Because,
Hmm.
sometimes, these are our babies. We love HBCUs, we love our community,
Yes.
and we love any organization we're a part of. So we don't want to talk negatively about it, but it's not negative when we all can benefit from growth. We all can benefit from education and
Hmm.
elevating. And I think the research that you're doing, I know you're going to do it with that in mind,
Hmm.
while still just putting out the research. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely excited to read that one. And you've already talked about some of your significant findings. What are some other findings that you've seen in your research?
I'll start with my first research brief with them. I will say academic achievement is something that's not widely researched when it comes to D9 organizations.
Mm,
It's not, it's just not. And even in my master's thesis, which talks about Black Greek life at HBCUs, which is literally my baby. I love my thesis to this day. When I talk to 24 participants across the country who are HBCU graduates or current students who just so happen to be Greek as well and crossed at that institution, when you ask them about academics, it's really about aspiring to membership to keep their grades up so they can have that chance to be accepted into their fraternity or sorority. But when it comes to keeping those said grades up, everybody has their different motivations for it. And some people don't really see it as a main focus of what they're trying to do because they're so busy with the service part, internships, jobs, and I would say just the overall social cultural aspect of D9 life. But
right.
academics, the most they'll talk about is when they're aspiring to be a member. And I would say the study tables part, that's really the best way. And awards for the highest GPA of a chapter. That's really all of what you'll see in research about how it motivates members to be academically sound. But what I was trying to get at in that research brief was what are some other programs that D9 orgs could start or could continue to build on, which really makes sure that their members are academically sound. I feel like a lot of motivation from it, some for members is chapter activity. If you want
Mm,
to stay active, your GPA has to be above a certain threshold. And I think that's a motivator. Another motivator is, for example, one of my participants, she's in Alpha Kappa Alpha, she crossed at Grambling. And she said the reason why she kept her GPA high even after she crossed was because she wanted to make sure that others who were aspiring to join the sorority knew what it took to maintain their their status as a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha is to have high scholastic and ethical standards, which is in their mission statement. So, and it's one of their mottos. So for her, it was just, I want to be the full embodiment of what an alpha woman is. So that was her motivation to keep her GPA high all the way to graduation. For other people, it was just, oh, I want to make sure our chapter stays active and that our GPA doesn't fall below the threshold to where we will be suspended until we got our grades together. So it's all different variations of it. I would say for my second research brief, the biggest findings is just what the women have to go through in order to be president and also the things that they have to endure to stay president. Some people have to sacrifice parts of their identity to be appeasing to other people. Some people have to fix their tone when they're talking to their board because yes, you're leading, but in their eyes, women, we're supposed to lead, but always make sure that the patriarchism within the HBCU setting is maintained. I think that's the best way to say it.
mhm,
They can lead, but to an extent, and they have to be toned down. Because
mhm.
some people will just say, oh, well, you need to watch your tone. Like, why are you telling me what to do? You're a woman. And to this day, it's always been like that. Yeah, even though another finding is HBCU females who are presidents at HBCUs, they're more likely to be presidents of HBCUs. But when it comes to comparing it to their counterparts who are Black women who are presidents at PWIs, is lower. So you just see those different types of variations of research, and it just makes you think about not just your own career, but like, what did our presidents have to go through when we were in school? If you had a female president, what did they have to go through, or what are they still going through to be a president and not have their job terminated? So it just makes you think about some things.
Wow. Again, I'm ready to read. Can't wait. And so I want to shift gears a little bit, going more into your graduate degree. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what inspired you to actually continue to pursue your education? And what advice do you have for those who are considering going to graduate school?
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, pursuing a master's degree started as a detour for me. I initially planned to go to law school. I wanted to be a higher education attorney, a general counsel for a university.
Okay.
But during my experience in that program, I realized higher education was my true passion. Learning about student development theory for underrepresented populations was something I liked learning about. Learning about ageism within higher education was something that I liked learning about, and even something that I'm experiencing in my job. Just learning about different things, even learning about the history of higher education in America, which is, I would say, between 400 to 500 years old. That was something I like learning about. I like learning about all of that stuff. And when I looked at law as my next step, it didn't excite me as much as higher education did. So I felt like I wanted to deepen my knowledge, develop research skills, which higher ed will give you, and grow as a leader so I could create meaningful impact in students' lives, which I've already done. At University of Dayton, if you go into their multicultural center and you look for those multi-ethnic organizations, whether that's the Hispanic organizations, whether that's the Black organizations, whether that's D9 or their student union, I've already made that impact. Like I personally created and led a plan that integrated career development into their hands because it wasn't being done in a way that I felt it could be done. So I've already made that impact. I feel like grad school clarified my purpose as a scholar practitioner, and it allowed me to connect with mentors and peers who challenged me to grow. And I feel for anyone considering grad school, my advice is to be very intentional about your goals. Seek mentorship, embrace challenges, and remain open to detours because they often lead to exactly where you're meant to be.
I like that. I'm over here taking my little notes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
so, you've already talked about this so much. And so, I don't want to emphasize that. But if you could just give like maybe two ways that you feel like your educational experience has shaped your approach to research and leadership.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, my educational journey, I feel it's taught me resilience, independence, and the value of having mentors. I feel like being young in school just prompted me to grow quicker than my peers and take on responsibility. It has helped shape my leadership style. At my age, to be a director of a program is monumental. It's an honor and a privilege because a lot of people don't get to do that. They just don't. And so I feel my life has been a lot of that, just getting the opportunities to do things that a lot of people don't get to do. I feel like Central State instilled in me the importance of representation within our fields. Anybody who has went to a HBCU specifically understands that.
Mhm.
You need to have representation in the fields that you are in, whether that's higher education, whether that's law, whether that's medicine, whether that's art, whether that's design, anything, engineering, anything. It's important to have representation because you're not just influencing the people around you, you're influencing the next generation of people the
Mhm.
kids, and things like that, I learned that leadership is not about just holding a title. It's about like serving others, listening, and empowering people. I feel like my research focuses on equity and opportunity, while my leadership emphasizes intentionality, collaboration, and mentorship. And I strive to create a department where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to succeed. So I'm very intentional with my staff and the things that we do and making sure that they feel valued for the work that they do, because sometimes a lot of bosses don't do that, and you wonder why you have a high turnover rate in your department or in your program or at your university. It's just something that has to be done. You have to have good leadership who is not just focused on their resume. Not saying that that's bad, but you have to do it to an extent to where you're actually empowering other people to do the same.
Right. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
And so my last official question for you is
Yes.
going back to the HBCU perspective, what do
Mhm.
you think are the top three priorities of HBCUs and their need to sustain for,
Oh
long
yeah.
term and to thrive?
So when I thought about answering this question, I wanted to make sure it was modern, because HBCU needs, they are the same but different.
Gotcha.
So in today's political and economic climate, I think HBCUs need to focus on three things: sustainable funding and resource development. I say that because, of course, me and you both know HBCUs face economic pressures. We're now experiencing shrinking federal support and
Mhm.
rising tuition costs. Diversifying revenue through partnerships, grants, and alumni engagement is critical. So the bigger institutions like our Howards, like our North Carolina A&Ts, like our Florida A&Ms, our Alabama A&Ms, they have the alumni engagement when it comes to donation. But our
Mhm.
smaller schools like Central State, like Wilberforce, like Miles, like Payne, like UDC, which people tend to forget about, and other institutions that are smaller, they may not necessarily have the alumni engagement when it comes to donation. Yes, we show up to homecoming, we show up to convocation, we show up to alumni association dinners and breakfasts and whatever have you, but our alumni donation rate does not reflect that. So I feel that it's just very important for us to continue to support our institutions to stay open, because there are plenty of HBCUs that used to be on our list that have closed because of that, because the alumni engagement was not well, and combining the federal support was not good. So it just, you have no choice but to close. The second one I would say is comprehensive student support. Students today face economic pressures, mental health challenges, and systemic inequities. They've always have, but more than ever, holistic support is important. Mentorship programs, mental health services, leadership programs, and career readiness is essential, especially the career readiness part. It makes me think about my podcast episode with Rutgers CMSI. I talked about, do HBCUs prepare students for their intended career path? And so it goes into that. It's very important that our students come out of our institutions actually having something lined up within, I would say, 6 months after graduation. So post grad won't be so crazy. My third and final priority would be visibility and advocacy. HBCUs, as we know, have incredible impact when it comes to the media, but I still feel our stories need to be widely told in a
Agreed.
way that we control the narrative, not the media, not the reporters, not the federal government, not anybody, our narrative. Public awareness, showcasing student and alumni achievements, and advocacy help attract students, faculty, donors, and partners, ensuring sustainability and growth. I feel like when it comes to Gen Z and now Gen Alpha going into that experience of what a HBCU is, they need to know all sides of what an HBCU is, not just the homecomings, not just the pep rallies, not just fraternities and sororities strolling and stepping. They need to see everything, our history. They need to see why HBCUs are important in their state or wherever state they're going to. They need to understand the financial aspect of it, all of that, not just certain parts. They need to understand the value of what the alumni give to that university. We every year we see the argument on social media, why are older people coming to homecoming instead of students? Homecoming is for alumni. As an alum, it's for me. We're and somebody said it best on TikTok. Somebody made a comment. Alumni keep the lights on. And we do. We do keep the lights on. Every dollar we give to our university, whether that's on a monthly basis, whether that's at homecoming, whether that's anytime, we keep the lights on. Our money values for something. So people need to understand that, prospective students need to understand that, and people who have misconceptions about HBCUs need to understand that. Making sure that our leaders of HBCUs really understand the value of endowments, partnerships, and making sure that they understand that that stuff equals sustainability. HBCUs need sustainability more than ever because they could just be swept under the rug and say that you no longer have institutions and HBCUs will be erased. So sustainability is everything. So those are my three priorities that I feel HBCUs should or continue to build upon to make sure that they're okay.
I want to add something here. Like, I envision us, not just you and I, but just all HBCU alumni coming together and putting together a HBCU museum to tell our
Ooh,
stories, you know,
okay. Yeah.
because we need that, especially as, we think more about multiculturalism coming in. People are questioning the need for HBCUs now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't want that historical aspect to be lost. Like,
Yes.
yes, we can hold both at the same time, but also remembering the foundation of why these institutions were created to begin with. What lands do they sit on? Why are they significant? How have they been able to sustain for some for almost 200 plus years? Like, that within itself is a story, it's a journey.
Yes.
And I think that's my genealogy side of my brain happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely I want to see that. I want us to create, even if it's a virtual museum starting out, and then we get a home base, and then we get, franchises in different locations,
Mm-hmm.
especially like a city like Atlanta, that would make sense. There's multiple HBCUs there, or,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So that is a goal of mine somewhere
Mm-hmm.
down the line.
Yes.
But I wanted to put that out into the atmosphere because I think that the work that we're doing is great. I am a component of addressing a situation in multiple aspects because everybody's not going to read a document, unfortunately. Right?
And you
So,
know what? Yeah. And shout out to our archivists. Shout out to our librarians at our
yes.
HBCUs, especially HBCUs that have a center for their archives. I'm seeing a lot of HBCUs are starting to open up their own archive centers so that in case people want to do research on that institution, they have the documents readily available to give. I will say Howard has done a great job over the years doing that. I can think they're the biggest institution that keeps the archives flowing and ready. North Carolina A&T is on the rise with that. Morgan State is on the rise with that. Even for me, considering a doctoral program, I'm considering Howard University and Morgan State University because of their proximity to higher education on the doctoral level. Delaware State is on the rise with their new program,
Mhm.
and just other programs that are trying their best to make sure that the history is where it needs to be. But shout out to our archivists, shout out to our librarians who are keeping those documents safe and making sure that people know the history of their institution. I will say Central State, we have videos about the history of our institution. We have documents, we have our yearbooks, like we have everything. But just shout out to those people who keep those documents safe and readily available for people to do intentional research about HBCUs.
For sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have one question that's off the books. That's not
Yeah,
on the book.
yeah.
It's just more so of like, what does equity mean to you in higher education?
Ooh.
Okay.
Depends on the context. So I would say, based on my research interests and things, equity is getting the same amount of money that everybody else get. Look at Tennessee State University. They're on $2 billion from the state of Tennessee. They're only seeing I would say 40% of it.
Mm.
Hey, look at that. Central State, we're owed a lot of money from the state of Ohio. Will we ever see it all? Who knows? Equity is that. It's the biggest thing that alumni can say. Why don't we get the same amount of money? Because it's designed that way. That's the biggest example of equity that I can think of when it comes to our institutions. Another thing is, I would say, making sure that everybody has a seat at the table when it comes to fostering equity on campuses, whether that's for disability services, whether that's for HR, whether that's for your administration cabinet, and things like that. Pay equity, paying your staff what they're worth, paying your student employees what they're worth on your
100%.
campus. Just having it's not just about the big words and like the administrative stuff. Presidents, leadership cabinet, and alumni should be at the top. Faculty and staff, students, and then every other employee you have, whether that's a janitor, whether that's an RA, whether that's anybody. You have to make sure that everybody is being paid what they're worth and that you're paying attention to what they're doing, and also making sure that you collect data on the people that you're serving. That's another
Right.
thing that HBCUs are starting to understand. They're starting to wake up and see, okay, data collection is important. That goes into that idea of the value of HBCUs. Why do they need to continue to exist? You need to have data to back it up. If other institutions can do the data, if they have whole assessment departments, then HBCUs can do it too.
Right.
It shouldn't just be everybody trying to put their 2 cents in. It should be a designated department who does assessment on everybody. So that's what I feel is equity to me.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to share about anything that we discussed today?
Yeah, if there's one thing I hope listeners take away today, it's the power of mentorship, community, and embracing opportunities. Whether through research, leadership, or supporting people, we all have the ability to create impact and open doors for others. I also want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Mary Beth Gassman and the entire Rutgers CMSI team, whose mentorship has been invaluable in shaping my path and inspiring me to combine research, practice, and advocacy. Shout out to my university, Central State University. Shout out to all HBCUs. Shout out to all the scholar practitioners, whether you're at a PWI, a HBCU, a HSI, and a NAPSI. It doesn't matter where you are. Just shout out to all the student affairs practitioners who are doing the work every day, even in the climate that we are in this country, and making sure that we are doing what we need to do. Shout out to TRIO programs. We're going through our own things right now with funding, but shout out to everybody that is continuing to do the work, even with budgets that have been slashed, that have been canceled. Please, I encourage you guys to keep trying to get your programs back. Yeah, that's really all I have with that. Shout out to my family. Shout out to my friends. Shout out to my boyfriend. Shout out to everybody.
Man,
Just
shout
shout
out
out
to
to
everybody.
everybody who
We just spreading
supports
love
me.
today. We
Yes.
spreading love today.
Yes,
And
I
so,
am.
so where can they find you so they can keep receiving all this love and knowledge and
Oh,
support?
yeah. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn at my first and last name, Meiyah Hill, where I share my professional insights on higher ed, equity, and leadership. I'm also on Instagram at genuine_MEI. My Instagram is a balance of personal and professional content. It's where I share professional announcements, highlights from my journey, and glimpses into my life as a scholar practitioner, HBCU alum who is active and financial in their local and national alumni associations,
Okay.
because that's very important. I try to show both personal and professional moments that shape who I am. And thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful sharing my story and vision for higher ed with you today.
No, thank you so much for being here. And
Mhm.
thank you to our listeners for listening to AJD Consulting Podcast. We've learned so much today. And so please comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you learned today. Please follow me on social media, specifically on Instagram at ajd.consulting. And we're going to continue this conversation. Stay tuned for future episodes. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.